General Hospital, a wedding derailed by secrets, betrayals, and the shattering of illusions **** in the latest explosive arc shaking Port Charles to its core, a wedding that was supposed to symbolize hope, redemption, and second chances is now spiraling into chaos. What began as a triumphant moment for Drew Kane and Willow Tate has been contaminated by a series of devastating revelations, dark motives, and hidden agendas. This is not merely a love story. It's a cautionary tale about power, manipulation, and the corrosive nature of buried truths. What follows is the unraveling of a facade too fragile to endure, revealing just how far everyone involved is willing to go to protect what they believe is theirs, even if it means tearing each other apart. Portia Robinson had been on edge for weeks, sensing the darkness quietly metastasizing beneath Willow's poised surface. When she confronted Willow about Drew's recent behavior, his underhanded plan to smear Michael Corinthos' reputation with fabricated drug abuse claims, she expected shock, maybe fury, or even a refusal to believe. Instead, what she got left her speechless. Willow coldly justified it all. As far as she was concerned, Drew was simply leveling the playing field. Michael had manipulated her emotionally, withheld Daisy, and weaponized the truth against her. Drew, in Willow's mind, was just doing what needed to be done to win her children back. The revelation didn't horrify her, it validated her. Portia could barely conceal her revulsion. The Willow she had once believed was morally unshakable was now indistinguishable from the manipulative players she had condemned not so long ago. Unable to contain the dread clawing at her chest, Portia called Nina Reeves in a panic. Her voice was strained, her message ominous, "Come see me right now." When Nina pressed for answers, Portia gave only one word, Willow. That name alone was enough to drain the color from Nina's face. Though she suspected Drew had been coercing and corrupting Willow for months, she never expected Willow to embrace it so completely. The woman she had once longed to see as a daughter had disappeared, replaced by someone complicit in Drew's schemes and fully unbothered by the damage he was causing. Nina knew something had to be done, and fast. Nina's distress only escalated when she confided in Ava Jerome. Over wine and candlelight at Windmere, Ava listened closely, her expression unreadable, as Nina admitted she was considering destroying her own relationship with Willow if it meant saving her from Drew. There was one ace left to play, the truth. Nina had slept with Drew long ago, in a moment of desperation and confusion. She had buried the affair under layers of denial, hoping it would stay forgotten. But as Drew spiraled deeper into megalomania, and Willow stood poised to link her life to his, Nina realized her silence might destroy what little good remained in her fractured family. She was terrified, but she was ready. Meanwhile, Curtis Ashford found himself in a moral crisis of his own. Portia's panic had ignited something in him, a righteous fury laced with regret. He had once vowed never to betray a friend again. That promise, however, was on the verge of collapse. As he sat in his study late into the night, Curtis recalled something Nina had said to him months ago, "Sometimes you have to betray a friend to save a soul." That mantra rang in his head as he stared at the wedding invitation sitting on the table, next to a dusty photograph of Drew from their days in Afghanistan. The man in the photo had honor. The one standing at the altar now had become a shadow of that man. On the morning of the wedding, Curtis made a decision. As Willow prepared for her walk down the aisle, her hair pinned perfectly and her gown shimmering with understated elegance, Curtis appeared at her dressing room door. He was nervous, but determined. He told her he had something to say, something that could alter the course of her future. When Willow asked what could possibly be so urgent, Curtis simply said, "It's about your mother. And it's about Drew." What followed was the revelation she never saw coming. Nina and Drew had once had an affair. At first, Willow tried to laugh it off, insisting that it didn't matter, until the pieces began falling into place. Nina's sudden animosity, her desperate warnings, her moments of guilt-laden silence. Drew's increasingly erratic attempts to secure her affection at all costs. Willow felt the floor fall out from under her. All the trust she had constructed on shaky ground came crumbling down. The very foundation of her new life was built on betrayal. She sat motionless as her bouquet slipped from her hands and hit the carpet with a soft thud. She whispered, "I need time." Time, however, was running out. Inside the chapel, guests grew restless. The string quartet played the same soft notes again and again. Drew stood at the altar, glancing toward the doors, his confidence cracking. He smiled at nothing, his hands clenched. Beside him stood a priest with a rehearsed smile, unaware he was about to officiate the ceremony that might never begin. And then, just before the music was to crescendo and announce the bride's arrival, the doors remained closed. Instead, it was Curtis who appeared at the chapel entrance. His expression was solemn, but steady. He walked down the aisle, past confused guests and bewildered family, and made his way directly to Drew. The room froze. Drew's mouth twitched. "Where's Willow?" he asked. Curtis looked him square in the eye. "Gone," he said flatly. "She's not coming." The ripple was immediate. Murmurs erupted. Gasps echoed off the stained glass windows. And Drew? He stood perfectly still. For the first time in months, he had no plan, no strategy, no backup. Just silence and the brutal sting of rejection. Elsewhere, Willow stepped out into the sunlight behind the church, still in her gown, still unsure. She wasn't running away because she didn't love Drew. She ran because she finally saw the full truth, that love born from deceit is still deceit, and that marrying him now would only complete the cycle of manipulation and moral decay she had spent so long trying to escape. She walked away with no clear destination, only the certainty that the woman who walked into the church that day could no longer exist after everything she had just learned. Back inside, Nina stood in the corner, watching Drew try to absorb the humiliation. He turned to her slowly, realizing, maybe too late, who had pulled the pin on the grenade that just went off in his life. But Nina wasn't triumphant. Her eyes were filled with something else, sorrow. The cost of the truth, she now realized, was not only Drew's downfall, it was also Willow's disillusionment. And her own final exile from her daughter's heart. In the aftermath, questions now linger over Port Charles like a storm cloud. What will Drew do next? Will he seek revenge or redemption? Will Willow ever forgive Nina, or Curtis, for breaking her illusions? And with the wedding destroyed, has Willow's descent into the morally gray finally come to a halt, or is this just the beginning of an even darker transformation? No one walks away clean from this wreckage. Not Nina, who sacrificed everything in a last-ditch effort to save her daughter. Not Curtis, who betrayed a friend in the name of justice. Not Portia, who rang the alarm bell too late. And certainly not Drew, whose empire of lies finally collapsed in the most public, humiliating fashion possible. But most of all, not Willow, because in learning the truth, she lost the future she thought she wanted. And maybe, just maybe, she found the strength to start building one she actually deserves.